Coming up today here on the Raiders Report, I'm going to be reacting to the John Spytek press conference and also the Pete Carroll press conference. This is the only Raiders news that has really happened today, but the news that is happening from this video is based on what the Raiders GM had to say and what the Raiders head coach had to say, because they talked about free agency, the draft, trades, a lot of players, and if you didn't get the chance to go out and watch the videos, it's all good, because I wanted to be able to give you a quick little Cliff Notes version of both of these press conferences. If you're looking for NFL Combine videos, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications. The Chat Sports team is in Indy, and we're getting a lot more interviews than we are usually able to get with the team being down there. I should also mention, the video for the John Spytek and Pete Carroll full interview is already on the Raiders Report channel, which if you're already subscribed, you probably already know. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to start with Spytek because he talked first, and then near the end of the show, I'll get into what Pete Carroll had to say. Let's go to the very first thing that I took away from Spytek's presser. Every avenue for a quarterback is on the table, whether they're looking at free agency, whether they're looking at via trade, whether they're looking at the draft. The Raiders are doing their due diligence to make sure that they don't get into a situation like they had last season where you're not putting the best quarterbacks out there on the field. Quarterback is important, and they are weighing all of their options. Next thing that, Spytek, I thought, said, which piqued my interest a little bit, really spoke about how deep the running back class is and was kind of asked, is that going to impact your decision-making? And you could tell that he knew the depth and overall depth at that running back position, and he said that he was going to focus on the ground game. We know how important the ground game is to Pete Carroll and how important winning in the trenches is to John Spytek, but the fact that this is also an organization that values and sees the running back position very, very clearly in the draft. I'm telling you this, they are going to take a running back. I almost wonder, though, if they don't get one in free agency, how many backs they take in the draft. Let's go to another thing that I kind of found a little bit surprising. The Raiders are going to evaluate Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. That is what was said, okay? I think the evaluation process looks like this. All right, that guy stinks. We're cutting him post-June 1st and Minshew. And then they are going to evaluate AOC. If the Raiders are a team that wants to go out and they want to bring in a quarterback early in the offseason, which they are going to do, and if the Raiders want to draft a QB, you could see Aiden O'Connell be on his way out. But at $1.2 million, he does hold some value. And if, let's say, the Raiders want to go out and they trade for Matthew Stafford, then I actually think there's more of a chance that Aiden could stick around on this football team. But if you are somebody that wants Aiden on this roster, you got to like what John Spytek said today. Let's go to the next thing. And one of the things was talked about, keeping young players and how important it is to the Raiders to keep young players. I'll admit, $8.45 million for Isaiah Pola-Mao was a little bit more money than I thought he was going to get. But Spytek said, Patrick Graham said that Pola-Mao was critical to the success of his defense, which I do think makes sense considering that PG always wants a versatile safety. But giving him that 2-year deal ties a young player that has shown growth better, who's shown growth year after year after year, and they did right by him by bringing him back. And when you listen to some of the other reports that have just kind of trickled out today from the Combine, it sounds like Spytek and Pete Carroll have a lot of attention on bringing back a lot of those players on defense that we're hoping the Raiders bring back. Let's go to the next thing here, that they're going to draft great players, not just need. Spytek flat out said that he thought when you draft based on need, you tend to reach a little bit and you don't get the best players, a.k.a., let's just say them out loud, right? Like a Damon Arnett, a Cleveland Ferrell, and Alex Leatherwood. When you reach and you go based on need, you don't always get the best player. Last year, the Raiders drafted Brock Bowers and JPJ, the both best players on the board. He did say that he hopes Brock Bowers is going to be a member of the Raiders for a long time. But if you're a fan and you like the best player available type of mentality, and, this is going to be a team that's got a lot of holes. I just want to go out and I want to get the best players on this draft. You're going to love that because that's what Spytek had to say. He was, of course, asked about Max Crosby, and he said that he believes that Crosby is going to be staying with the team for the foreseeable future. He didn't get into all the ins and outs around this entire situation, but he sounds like he wants to keep Max Crosby around. And when he was asked, what does it take, or what type of players are you looking for that Raider mentality? I don't know how you let Max Crosby walk out the building and say, everything that you did about everything that you want your players to be. Everything the Raiders want their players to be is already flipping Max Crosby. So hearing what I did today, the Max deal's going to get done. Let's go to another one, and this might have been the most interesting thing that I thought John Spytek said out of everything. He mentioned Cam Ward and Will Howard by name. So essentially the way that this ended up happening was he was asked about, quarterbacks and how important the transfer portal was. And one of the things Spytek said was that they liked was being able to find quarterbacks that used the transfer portal that were able to show success at multiple different organizations, different programs, and also were able to show growth. You're talking about the Kyle McCords of the world, who has a meeting with the Raiders at the Combine. Shedeur Sanders, who's got a meeting with the Raiders at the Combine. Cam Ward, Will Howard also have meetings with the Raiders at the Combine. But the two quarterbacks that John Spytek said by name, Cam Ward and Will Howard. Will Howard, not all that surprising. The Ohio State quarterback worked with Chip Kelly. Cam Ward is interesting because this is also a day after there was a report indicating that the Raiders could trade up to the number 1 pick for the Titans. And the Titans also said today at the NFL Combine that they have received multiple calls for the number 1 pick. This, to me, was the most interesting thing that I thought I heard from the entire John Spytek press conference. Let's go to the next thing that Spytek said. It was asked about Chip Kelly, and if you want to see this whole part, this is already actually on the YouTube channel as well, just like a broken up part of the Chip Kelly segment. But he said that he was a great offensive mind, a great quarterback developer, which is why they gave him 3 times the amount of money that Ohio State was giving him. But also on top of that, you want somebody that is a step ahead of the game. And whether you like Chip Kelly or not as the head coach, you got to love Chip Kelly as the play caller. And from his time at New Hampshire to Oregon to the Philadelphia Eagles to the Ohio State Buckeyes, every place Chip Kelly has gone, he has instilled a solid offense that shows you he is always figuring out and adapting to today's day and age of the NFL. Next thing was this, that he said that Spytek, that he talks to Brady occasionally, and, we talk a lot about what is this Raiders team going to do, and we know Tom Brady is involved. Spytek said that he talks to him, though, only on occasions, but does listen to him, and said that you would be dumb not to listen to him. The final thing that I'm going to talk about that I love that Spytek said is that they're going to use virtual reality and AI to help the coaches. What do I mean by that? This is something that I talked about last month. Jaden Daniels came out and said that he uses this virtual reality system to help him see and kind of understand the game and just simplify it all for him. One of the reasons why I've always wanted a younger coach is because sometimes younger coaches are not afraid of technology. And in today's day and age, let's use technology to our advantage. This is what smart organizations do. They're not afraid of change. They embrace it and they learn along with it. And John Spytek is definitely doing that. Now, if you want to see the entire interview for yourself, which I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be a little bit disappointed in the entire nation if you don't watch this entire press conference with John Spytek, our new GM. He dropped a lot of good tidbits, and this video, down in the comments, down in the description of today's show, it's been on the channel now for a few hours. Coming up next here, we're going to be reacting to the Pete Carroll press conference, and I'm going to be fully transparent. The John Spytek presser was way more entertaining than Pete Carroll's. I'm not saying Pete's wasn't interesting, though I do have a little bit of a bone to pick with the Raiders in regards to Carroll here in just a moment. Before I do, though, I got to show some love to Prize Picks, today's sponsor. It's easy, it's exciting. Daily fantasy sports made easy. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts, like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this basketball season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the app today. Use code CLNS. And this is one of our lineups for season long for baseball. If you want to go check it out, I'm telling you right now what I'm doing tonight. Lakers, Mavs, Luka Moore on the points. I'm going to be sitting there tonight with my fiance, Alex. And this is why I tell everybody this is like the perfect night to go get started with Prize Picks, because you're going to watch that game and you're already going to be locked in. But I'm going to be able to watch that game, and we're going to be able to root for Luka, and she's going to want to watch the entire game, and I'm going to have an opportunity to put money in my pocket. That's a freaking win right there, baby. Shout out to Prize Picks for hooking up the nation, and shout out to Prize Picks for being America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. All right, we're going to keep it moving here. Let's go to the Pete Carroll press conference reaction. And, just like the John Spytek video, we also have the Pete Carroll press conference from start to finish. Please go check it out. This video is about 28 minutes long. And again, down in the comments, down in the description of today's show. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the top 10 things that I took from the Carroll press conference. The first one is the Raiders are trying to win right away. And, a lot of times you talk about rebuilds, and Carroll even said that it took him a little while to kind of get it going in Seattle, but they were able to win right away. And that he thought that it does take, multiple years to kind of get your system in check. But I'm telling you, Pete has made it very clear. This is a team that is going to try to win right away. And knowing that they're going to try to win right away means very aggressive offseason. Let's go to another thing that really piqued my interest. And, last year I used to always say Tom Telesco loves Notre Dame players. Or, Josh McDaniels and, or how about this? Mike Mayock used to always recruit Boston College guys because he was from Boston College. One of the things that Pete said that he loved was the amount of talented players that were coming out of Ohio State and just the amount of players that kind of just seemed to be pro-ready coming out of Ohio State. That's something that I'm going to keep a close eye on. And for the Raiders to go out and hire Chip Kelly, give him a pay raise. I know that he's on the offensive side of the football. However, though, coaches in college is really important to Pete. And I'm really curious how many players from Ohio State the Raiders end up getting. Maybe we don't get any. But hearing Pete talk about OSU the way that he did today, Ohio State players are going to be in the back of my mind a little bit closer. Let's go to another thing that I love. He said that Pete Carroll himself, John Spytek, and Brady all speak the same language. It's so critical to have everybody on the same page when you're trying to accomplish the ultimate goal. It's important, right? I used to always say the Raiders defense used to struggle to me because you got John Gruden, Mike Mayock combined with Antonio Pierce, Tom Telesco, combined with Josh McDaniels, Dave Ziegler, all trying to run one system. When you have everybody speaking the same language from draft free agency, it helps you create a plan, and it helps you keep that plan going. Carroll did say that he talks to Tom Brady daily. So he's talking to Brady daily. Spytek talks to him on occasion, which I figured I would throw out in there just because we hear Tom Brady's name being mentioned all the time. One of the things that they said in terms of final decision-making processes is it's going to be a collab. When Josh McDaniels wanted the decision made, he was the one that made it. When John Gruden needed to make a decision, John Gruden made the decision over Mayock. And I have always said that I hate when NFL organizations in general operate that way. You got a brand of trustees. You got a bunch of people in the room. John Spytek, Pete Carroll are going to listen, which is what smart organizations do. Next thing that Carroll said, talked about how important the running game is. And I know we're talking a lot about quarterbacks, but the running game is critical. And, kind of talked about building around a quarterback. So when I heard Carroll say that, they want to have that running back that can take pressure off the QB to get shorter, third down situations, to just get the play action going, but then also to build around the quarterback and just how important it is to have a great offensive line, to have a great receiving core, to have a great tight end group, to have a great running game that can also have a great defense on the back end. Like a lot of times I sit here and I wonder what they're going to do. Based off of what this conversation was here for Pete, this would be good for the Justin Fields group of you can go out and you can sign Justin Fields because that's going to allow you to have more money to allocate to all of these other positions of need, which the Raiders do have a lot. If you subscribe to the idea that it's not just a quarterback that wins games, but an entire team that wins games, you got to like what Pete Carroll said there. Next thing, he said that hiring coaches from college is a benefit. So a few years ago, many years ago, the Legion of Boom was kind of started when Pete Carroll, in that very first year, I believe it was 2012, they crushed that draft. And even though everybody said it was bad, they were able to find guys like Bobby Wagner, Earl Thomas, Russell Wilson, and that draft group was going to go down in the history books as probably one of the greatest groups of all time. He said that he hired coaches from college, put them on his staff because he felt that those coaches knew players in college a lot better. So one of the reasons why the Raiders brought in a lot of these college coaches this regime is because they felt that their knowledge of some of these players was a lot better than a lot of other teams out there, which I found very interesting. He also kind of talked about Russ and Bobby Wagner in terms of just being asked the question. He was asked about Matthew Stafford, and he literally just said, I'm not going to talk about anybody else on any other team, which is the right answer because you can get in trouble by it. But also did say that, Russell, Bobby Wagner are going to be free agents. And he said that he thinks that people would be surprised of how much they still communicate, which I don't think is anything that we haven't already heard. And then the final say was quarterback competition will happen. And he was just somebody that believes in when you bring in a lot of competition, no matter what, it's going to bring out the best in his players. But hearing Carroll say that, I think that a lot of us just assume that the Raiders are going to draft a QB and XYZ. I don't think that Aiden's going to have any chance in hell in starting this year. And I don't know if the quarterback that the Raiders draft is going to have any chance to start this season. But there's at least a chance. And when the when the Seahawks drafted Russell Wilson, he was not the player that was expected to start at QB, but he was the best quarterback in the offseason. He was the best quarterback in the preseason, and Pete gave him the starting job, and obviously the rest is history with Russell. I think that that's what they're going to do. So hypothetically speaking, if the Raiders were to go out and sign a Sam Darnold and then draft a young quarterback, and then Aiden O'Connell ends up being the best quarterback from that group, based on what Pete said, they're going to put the best guy out there, which is what good organizations do, but Pete's going to try to create a little bit of competition. Shout out to Pete Carroll, though, for that press conference. Man, he looked well-rested. He looked fiery. You can't even believe that guy's 73 years old. Speaking of things that I can't believe the Las Vegas Raiders put Pete Carroll in coach. If you haven't heard this story, I get he's the head coach. But how does the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders get put in coach on a flight? Maybe it's not that big of a deal. Quite frankly, I see Pete kind of laughing about the entire situation. But one of the things that I did recognize was, and this was a report from Grant Cohn, shout out to Grant Cohn, he said that Carroll spent about an hour on his way to the combine talking to Mike McDonald and John Schneider, head coach and GM of the Seattle Seahawks. And, I've been getting asked, Mitch, what do you think they talked about for an hour? I'll tell you what I think they talked about for an hour. But seriously, can we hit that like button? And I don't know what it's going to take to get Pete Carroll in first class. I personally have never flown first class. I don't mind flying in coach. But a 73-year-old head coach, we got enough money to put him in first class, Raiders. How are you going to put Pete on a flight when another organization like the Seattle Seahawks is sitting there with their guys in first class, Pete's sitting back at coach, and it wasn't even a window seat. They put him in the freaking aisle. Dude's 73 years old. Raiders, let's just act like a better organization. And maybe it was a mix-up. Maybe it's a little minor thing. The Raiders have been spending more money than this offseason on coaches that they already have. But I was a little bit disappointed in you, Mark, to find out you put Pete in coach. Maybe it was an accident, but damn it can't happen again. So what was Pete Carroll talking about with the Seattle Seahawks for over an hour? My first guess, maybe he was talking about getting a DK Metcalf trade started. A lot of rumors around DK potentially joining the Raiders. What about this? Is Geno Smith available? We've heard a lot about Smith potentially being on the open market, but hey, could Seattle end up holding on to him? And then the last thing is, are the Seahawks going to cut Tyler Lockett at 33 years old? The answer to this one is yes, Seattle will end up moving on from Lockett. And when you look at all of these options, Pete's very close with all three of these players. This is just a guess. Obviously, there's no way to identify what Pete talked about unless Pete comes out and tells you. But shout out to the stewardess also for letting Pete stand in an aisle for an hour long. That's unbelievable to me. So in conclusion, these were my biggest takeaways. All quarterback options are on the table, and they're going to create a lot of competition. But the fact that Pete mentioned Will Howard and Cam Ward, that's not Pete, John. That's very interesting to me. Building a great team with a running game is important to both Spytek and Carroll, so I expect them to take a look at a lot of the running backs, a lot of these players in the trenches, and they're going to try to build an entire team from top to bottom, which does make me wonder if going out and signing a quarterback like a Sam Darnold, which is going to take more money, if that's actually in their thought process. And then Spytek and Carroll, they're doing things the right way. They're thinking the same way. And just hearing Pete and hearing Spytek talk, I have nothing but love and gratitude for Telesco and AP. I have learned a lot from Ziegler and Josh McDaniels, and I have learned a lot from Gruden and Mayock. But when you listen to Pete and John Spytek talk, you can't tell me that they don't sound like they are the most prepared and most well-thought-out duo that we have had a head coach and GM in a long time. That was the message that I got really, really clear today from the NFL Combine.